With winter fast approaching and electricity demand expected to peak, there have been alarm bells raised that South Africa could face power cuts. Eskom has said there's no need to panic, but they have admitted that they're experiencing coal shortages. At the same time, there's been fierce resistance to independent power producers and renewable energy deals, with NUMSA and people like the Coal Transporters Forum saying they will cause huge job losses. Siyabonga Mbanjwa, who's the Regional Managing Director of SENER, joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. We've heard that we've got a surplus of electricity in South Africa. We've also got very low growth rate. So some people are saying that we shouldn't even be looking at independent power producers at the moment. We could be focusing our money and efforts elsewhere.
I don't really buy that because that is a rather short-term way of looking at things. As a country, we've got to do medium to long-term planning. As you know, our country recently announced that we'll be going around the world trying to raise at least $100 billion in terms of investment. What that will do is that it will stimulate the South African economy, and when the economy is stimulated, we should not be found wanting. So it's important that our planning is not just for the short term. It may certainly be the case that we have the surplus, but you have also heard, and you've also mentioned in your introduction, that we already have some challenges with regards to coal. As a result, we've started burning diesel, and diesel is by far the most expensive form of generating electricity. So we've got to look at the medium to long-term view.
While we are looking at medium and long-term planning, cost is also quite an important consideration. I just want to look at these numbers. Last year, or in 2017, the cost of IPP was 19.8 billion rand, and that's an increase of almost 30% from the year before, where it was 15.1 billion rand. That's according to Eskom. So these IPP costs are increasing every year. Is this not a worry, and is this not going to hurt our pockets as consumers that we're paying so much for this source of power?
Well, I think the increase is natural. Firstly, there was an increase in the amount of IPPs that were in the system. Therefore, the increase is acceptable from that perspective. But secondly, the cost of electricity that you and I buy from Eskom does escalate every year. The difference, though, which is a major difference, is the fact that you and I don't really know what we're going to be paying next year. When you deal with an independent power producer, you fix that up front, and it's relatively pegged on the inflation rate, which is more reasonable. So inflation is a fact of life. It does increase every year.
One of the fears around independent power producers, as well as renewable energy and energy that people don't understand as much as they do perhaps coal, is that there is a way of keeping prices high, and that's been countered by people also saying that if there's a lot of competition with IPPs, the prices are going to come down. But that's not the case for everything. Something like biomass is still expensive and would still cost us a lot of money.
Yes, absolutely. If you compare, for example, wind, we have way over 450,000 megawatts of wind that's been built throughout the world. What that means is that that's a technology that's quite advanced, that's quite mature. It means that you've had a number of service providers that have tried to find ways of reducing costs. The level of competition has gone up, therefore prices start dropping. Something like biomass is still relatively new, and there's still a lot of technological developments that need to take place in that regard. We need to roll out a lot more, therefore the prices are still higher. I think what's important here, and what we shouldn't lose sight of, is the fact that what we're trying to do is to address some environmental concerns that we have as a country. As an example, we've had the issues that we've had with water in Cape Town. That does not come out of thin air. Those are the results of climate change, and we need to make changes in terms of how we go about doing things. If we're going to go on with normal fossil fuels, we will regret it in the future. So we do need to do something about it. Yes, biomass may cost slightly more, but we need to spend a lot more in terms of research and development. We need to roll out more of it, and the prices will definitely come down. The prices of renewables globally has been coming down at a phenomenal rate. And if we didn't actually stop the program back in 2015, we would have benefited from that as well. So the more we roll out this program, the more the costs will come down.
There's also a lot of anxiety around renewable energy and clean energy. I spoke about the Coal Transporters Forum, NUMSA going to court to interdict the minister to stop these IPPs because thousands of jobs are going to be lost. How do you balance the need for clean energy with also the very real need, especially in South Africa, that people should be employed in sectors that have traditionally been very big employers?
Absolutely. I think what's important to highlight is that renewables are employers as well. We should not lose sight of the fact that renewables are employers.
Perhaps not on as large scale.
Yes, perhaps, but because the projects are smaller. However, if we look at the total megawatts at the end of the day that are achievable with a number of different projects, then the numbers could start to make some sense. What we need to realize with regards to coal and coal-fired power stations is the fact that this is an old plan. It's not a plan that is based on renewable energy or independent power producers. Coal is not a sustainable energy source. It's a dirty source of energy. So we do need to do something about that. And as far back as 2010, when the Integrated Resource Plan was prepared and issued for comment and published and became basically law and policy, it was already made clear that we've got a number of power stations that will be shutting down. So this sudden interest in renewables causing those power stations to be shut down, I think is opportunistic and is probably misdirected. I think there is a certain level of education that needs to take place in terms of the public as a whole.
Siyabonga Mbanjwa is the Regional Managing Director of SENER. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. It's time for a short break. I'll have more international business news for you when we come back. Do stay with us.